The camera rolled as Muhammad Ali stepped into the dimly lit gymnasium in Chicago's South Side, sweat still glistening on his forehead from his morning training session. What he didn't know was that investigative reporter James Mitchell had been following him for weeks, documenting something that would change everything Ali thought he knew about his own impact on the world. It was November 1975, and Ali was preparing for his upcoming fight against Joe Frazier in Manila. The press had been relentless, painting him as the brash, loud-mouthed champion who cared only about fame and fortune. But Mitchell had noticed something different during his surveillance, patterns that didn't match the public persona everyone thought they knew. Every Tuesday and Thursday, after his grueling training sessions at the Fifth Street Gym, Ali would disappear for exactly 2 hours. His entourage knew nothing about these mysterious absences. His manager, Angelo Dundee, had asked repeatedly, but Ali would simply smile and say he had business to handle. The press assumed it was probably endorsement meetings or secret training sessions. Mitchell had been investigating corruption in professional boxing when he stumbled upon Ali's routine. As a seasoned reporter for the Chicago Tribune, he had covered everything from political scandals to organized crime, but something about Ali's secretive behavior intrigued him. The champion was already the most photographed athlete in America. What could he possibly be hiding? On this particular Thursday, Mitchell positioned himself across the street from the gym, camera ready, notebook in hand. He watched as Ali emerged from the building, his usual entourage nowhere to be seen. Instead of heading toward his Cadillac, Ali walked 3 blocks north, his head down, moving with purpose through the bustling streets of the South Side. The November wind cut through Chicago like a knife, and Mitchell pulled his coat tighter as he followed at a distance. Ali turned left on 47th Street, then right on Cottage Grove Avenue. The neighborhood grew quieter, more residential. Modest brick houses lined the streets, many with broken windows and overgrown yards, a stark contrast to the luxury Ali was accustomed to. Mitchell's heart raced as Ali stopped in front of a small, weathered building with a hand-painted sign that read, "Lincoln Elementary After-School Program." The reporter crouched behind a parked car, adjusting his telephoto lens. What was the heavyweight champion of the world doing at an elementary school in one of Chicago's most neglected neighborhoods? Ali knocked on the door, and it opened immediately, as if they were expecting him. A middle-aged African-American woman with graying hair and a warm smile embraced him like an old friend. Mitchell snapped photos, his mind racing with questions. This wasn't a publicity stunt. There were no cameras, no reporters, no fanfare. Just Ali and this woman, who clearly knew him well. Through the window, Mitchell could see children, maybe 20 or 30 of them, ranging in age from 6 to 12. They were sitting in a circle on the floor, and when Ali entered the room, their faces lit up with pure joy. But these weren't the usual star-struck expressions Mitchell had seen at press conferences. These children knew Ali personally. Mitchell moved closer, finding a position where he could see and hear through a partially open window. What he witnessed next would haunt him for the rest of his career. Ali sat down on the floor with the children, his massive frame folding gracefully as he joined their circle. "All right, champions," he said softly, his voice lacking the theatrical boom that characterized his public appearances. "Who wants to tell me about their week?" A small girl with pigtails raised her hand eagerly. "Mr. Ali, I got a B on my math test. Just like you said, I kept practicing every day." Ali's face broke into a genuine smile, the kind Mitchell had never captured in any press photo. "That's my girl, Sarah. See what happens when you believe in yourself? You're already a champion, and you don't even need gloves." One by one, the children shared their stories. Some talked about improved grades, others about standing up to bullies, and a few shared struggles at home. Ali listened to each one with complete attention, offering encouragement, advice, and sometimes just a hug. Mitchell learned that Ali had been coming to this after-school program for over 8 months, ever since he'd heard about it from a janitor at his gym, whose grandson attended. The program served children from families who couldn't afford proper childcare, many of them from single-parent homes, where parents worked multiple jobs just to make ends meet. "Now, who remembers what we talked about last week?" Ali asked the group. A boy of about 10 raised his hand. "You said that being strong isn't about hitting people, it's about helping people." "That's right, Marcus, and what else?" "That we're all champions inside. We just gotta train our minds like you train your body." Ali nodded approvingly. "And how do we train our minds?" The children responded in unison. "By reading, by being kind, by never giving up, and by helping others." Mitchell watched in amazement as Ali pulled out a stack of books from a duffel bag, not boxing magazines or sports biographies, but children's books about science, history, and adventure. He had been personally funding this program, not just with money, but with his time and attention. "Mrs. Washington," Ali called to the woman who had greeted him at the door, "how are we doing with the winter coats?" "We've got enough for all the children now, thanks to your donation," she replied. "And the tutoring program you suggested is already showing results. 3 more children have brought their reading levels up to grade standard." Mitchell's hands trembled slightly as he continued photographing. This was the story of a lifetime, but something inside him hesitated. These children trusted Ali. This was their safe space, their sanctuary. Was it right to expose this private moment to the world? As the session continued, Ali worked individually with several children who were struggling with homework. He helped a young girl with her reading, patiently sounding out words and celebrating each small victory. He listened to a boy practice a speech for his class, offering gentle corrections and building his confidence. "Mr. Ali," asked a quiet girl who had been sitting in the back, "why do people say mean things about you on TV?" Ali's expression grew thoughtful. "Well, Keisha, sometimes people don't understand that being different isn't being bad. I talk loud and I'm proud of who I am, and that scares some people. But you know what matters most?" "What?" "What's in here?" he said, pointing to his heart. "And what's in here?" He pointed to his head. "If you keep both of those strong and good, it doesn't matter what anybody else says about you." The 2 hours passed quickly, and as the session ended, each child hugged Ali goodbye. Mitchell watched as the champion knelt down to speak privately with a boy who seemed upset. "What's wrong, Tommy?" "My mom says we might have to move again. She can't pay the rent." Ali was quiet for a moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "You give this to your mom, okay? Tell her to call this number tomorrow. My friend Mr. Johnson helps families find good places to live that they can afford. And Tommy?" "Yes, sir?" "No matter where you move, you remember what we learned here. You're a champion, and champions take care of each other." As Ali prepared to leave, Mrs. Washington walked him to the door. "Muhammad, I don't know how to thank you enough. These children, you've changed their lives. They've changed mine too, Mrs. Washington. They remind me why I fight, not for the titles or the money, but to show them that someone who looks like them can be anything they want to be." Mitchell followed Ali back through the neighborhood, his mind reeling from what he had witnessed. The man the media portrayed as an egotistical showboat was actually using his fame and fortune to quietly transform the lives of children who had nothing. Back at his apartment that night, Mitchell developed the photographs and reviewed his notes. He had enough material for a front-page story that would completely reshape public perception of Muhammad Ali. But as he stared at the images of Ali reading with the children, helping with homework, and listening to their problems, he found himself questioning everything he thought he knew about journalism. The next morning, Mitchell made a decision that would define his career. Instead of rushing to publish the story, he called Ali's manager and requested a private meeting. When they met at a small diner downtown, Mitchell laid out everything he had discovered. "I could publish this story tomorrow," Mitchell told Ali. It would make you look like a saint, but those kids trust you, and I don't want to destroy that by turning their safe space into a media circus. Ali studied the reporter for a long moment. So what do you want? I want to understand why. Why risk your reputation by being secretive about something so positive? Ali leaned back in his booth, his usual bravado completely absent. You ever been poor, Mr. Mitchell? Really poor, where you don't know if there's going to be food tomorrow? No, I haven't. I have. And I remember what it felt like when adults would come around our neighborhood with cameras, taking pictures of us like we were animals in a zoo. They'd write their stories about the underprivileged children and then disappear, leaving us feeling like freaks. Ali paused, stirring his coffee slowly. Those kids at Lincoln Elementary, they don't need pity. They need someone who believes in them. If I turn this into a publicity thing, it stops being about them and starts being about me. And that's not what they deserve. Mitchell felt something shift inside him. What if there was a way to tell this story that protected them, but still showed the world who you really are? How? Let me spend more time with the program. Let me understand it fully. And when I write the story, I'll focus on the impact, not the spectacle. No photos of the children, no addresses, nothing that would compromise their privacy. Ali considered this for several minutes. You do that? Give up the sensational angle for the right one. I became a journalist to tell stories that matter, not just stories that sell papers. Over the next 3 months, Mitchell became a regular observer at the Lincoln Elementary after-school program. He watched Ali work with the children, saw the genuine relationships he had built, and documented the measurable improvements in their academic performance and self-confidence. He also discovered that this wasn't Ali's only charitable work. The champion was quietly funding similar programs in 3 other cities, paying for college scholarships for promising students, and personally mentoring dozens of young people who had reached out to him for help. But it was during a December visit that Mitchell witnessed the moment that would become the centerpiece of his story. A young boy named David, who had been struggling with severe stuttering, stood up during the group session and recited a poem he had written about courage. His words came out clear and strong, and when he finished, the room erupted in applause. Ali's eyes filled with tears as he hugged the boy. You see that, David? You just proved that champions aren't made in the ring. They're made right here, in moments like this. Mitchell knew he had found his story. Not the story of Muhammad Ali, the boxer, but the story of Muhammad Ali, the human being. When the article was finally published in March 1976, it ran with the headline, "The Champion's Real Fight, Muhammad Ali's Secret War Against Poverty and Despair." Mitchell had kept his promise. No photos of the children, no specific locations, just the powerful story of a man using his platform to create real change in the lives of those who needed it most. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Letters poured in from around the country, from parents, teachers, and children who had been inspired by Ali's example. Other athletes began reaching out to learn how they could start similar programs in their own communities. But the most meaningful response came from Ali himself, who called Mitchell the day after the story ran. "You kept your word," Ali said simply. "Those kids are still safe, but now maybe other kids in other places will get the same chance." That's what real champions do. They lift others up. Years later, when Mitchell won a Pulitzer Prize for his series on community-based solutions to urban poverty, he would always credit that first story about Ali as the moment he learned the difference between reporting news and changing lives. The secret he had discovered wasn't just about Muhammad Ali's hidden charity work. It was about the power of using one's platform not for personal glory, but for the betterment of others. The Lincoln Elementary after-school program continued to thrive, eventually expanding to serve over 200 children annually. Many of the original participants went on to graduate from college, and several became teachers and community leaders themselves. carrying forward the lessons they had learned in that small room where a heavyweight champion had taught them that true strength comes from lifting others up. If this story touched your heart like it touched mine, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever discovered that someone you thought you knew was completely different than their public image? Share your experiences, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss stories that remind us of the power of human kindness. Your support helps us bring more inspiring content like this to light, so please hit that like button to help spread this message of hope and compassion to others who need to hear it. Tommy Rodriguez clutched the business card Mr. Ali had given him, the edges already worn from his nervous fingers. 3 days had passed since that conversation at the after-school program, and his mother still hadn't called the number. She worked double shifts at the diner downtown and came home too exhausted to deal with what she called charity handouts. "Mijo, we don't take help from strangers," she had said when Tommy showed her the card. "We make our own way." But Tommy could see the worry lines deepening around her eyes each morning when she counted the bills on their kitchen table. The eviction notice had arrived yesterday, giving them 2 weeks to find the money or find somewhere else to live. It would be their 4th move in 2 years. At school, Tommy tried to concentrate on his math worksheet, but the numbers blurred together. His teacher, Mrs. Peterson, had noticed his distraction lately. During lunch, she pulled him aside. "Tommy, is everything okay at home? You seem worried about something." Tommy wanted to tell her everything. About the eviction notice, about his mother's tears when she thought he was asleep, about how scared he was that they might have to move far away from the only stable thing in his life, the after-school program where Mr. Ali made him feel like he mattered. "I'm fine, Mrs. Peterson," he lied, the words tasting bitter in his mouth. That afternoon at Lincoln Elementary, Tommy sat quietly in the corner while the other children shared their weekly victories with Mr. Ali. Sarah talked about her improved spelling test scores, and Marcus proudly displayed a drawing he had made for his grandmother. Tommy had nothing to share except worry. Mr. Ali noticed his silence. During the individual reading time, the champion sat down beside Tommy with a worn copy of Where the Red Fern Grows. "You seem heavy today, little man. Want to talk about it?" Tommy shook his head, but his eyes betrayed him. Mr. Ali had taught them all that champions were honest about their struggles. "My mom won't call your friend," Tommy whispered. "She says we don't take charity. But Tommy, we're going to lose our apartment, and I don't want to leave here. I don't want to leave you and Mrs. Washington and everyone." Mr. Ali was quiet for a moment, then closed the book and looked directly at Tommy. "You know what I learned when I was about your age? Sometimes the bravest thing a champion can do is ask for help. It doesn't make you weak, it makes you smart. But my mom says, your mom is a champion too, Tommy. She's working hard to take care of you, but even champions need a team sometimes. That's why boxers have trainers and cornermen. Nobody wins alone." That evening, Tommy made a decision that terrified him. While his mother was in the shower, he picked up their old rotary phone and dialed the number on Mr. Ali's business card. His hands shook as he waited for someone to answer. "Johnson Housing Services. This is Robert speaking." Hi. My name is Tommy Rodriguez. Muhammad Ali gave me this number." The man's voice immediately warmed. "Tommy, Muhammad told me you might call. How can I help you, son?" Tommy explained their situation in a rush of words, afraid he might lose his courage. Mr. Johnson listened patiently, asking gentle questions about their current rent, his mother's income, and their housing needs. "Tommy, I think I might have some options for your family. Can you have your mother call me tomorrow? I promise you, this isn't charity. We help families find affordable housing that fits their budget. It's what we do." When Tommy's mother emerged from the bathroom, she found her son sitting at the kitchen table with tears in his eyes, but for the first time in weeks, they weren't tears of fear. "Mama, please, just call him. Mr. Ali says even champions need a team." Maria Rodriguez looked at her 8-year-old son, seeing a maturity in his eyes that broke her heart. She had been trying so hard to protect him from their financial struggles, but clearly he understood more than she had realized. The next morning, Maria called Mr. Johnson during her break at the diner. The conversation lasted 20 minutes, and by the end, she had an appointment to view 3 different apartments that afternoon, all within their budget, all in neighborhoods with good schools, and one just 6 blocks from Lincoln Elementary. The apartment they chose was small but clean, with 2 bedrooms and windows that actually let in sunlight. The rent was $50 less than what they had been paying, and Mr. Johnson had worked with the landlord to waive the security deposit in exchange for Maria's agreement to help maintain the building's small garden. 2 weeks later, as they carried their belongings into their new home, Tommy found Mr. Ali waiting on the front steps with Mrs. Washington and several of the other children from the program. "Thought you might need some help moving in," Mr. Ali said with a grin. "Champions help champions, remember?" The group spent the afternoon helping the Rodriguez family settle into their new apartment. Mr. Ali carried boxes, Mrs. Washington organized the kitchen, and the children helped Tommy set up his new bedroom. It felt like a celebration rather than a moving day. As the sun began to set, everyone gathered in the small living room for pizza that Mr. Ali had ordered. Tommy watched his mother laugh, really laugh, for the first time in months, as Mrs. Washington told stories about her own childhood. "Mr. Ali," Tommy said quietly, pulling the champion aside, "thank you for teaching me to be brave." "You taught yourself that, Tommy. I just reminded you that you already had it inside you. That's what real champions do. They help each other remember how strong they really are." 6 months later, Tommy stood in front of his 4th grade class, delivering a presentation about courage. He spoke clearly and confidently about how asking for help had saved his family, and how real strength came from community and connection. In the audience, Maria Rodriguez wiped away tears of pride. Her son had learned something she was still trying to understand, that accepting help wasn't a sign of weakness, but a recognition of the strength that comes from being part of something bigger than yourself. After school that day, Tommy ran to the Lincoln Elementary program, bursting with excitement to share his success with Mr. Ali. But when he arrived, he found the champion sitting quietly with Mrs. Washington, looking unusually serious. "What's wrong?" Tommy asked, his excitement quickly turning to concern. Mr. Ali smiled, but Tommy could see sadness in his eyes. "Nothing's wrong, little man. But I have some news. I'm going to be traveling a lot more for my boxing career, and I won't be able to come to our sessions as often." The room fell silent. The other children had gathered around, sensing the weight of the moment. "But," Mr. Ali continued, "Mrs. Washington and I have been talking, and we think it's time for you all to start leading some of these sessions yourselves. Tommy, how would you feel about helping the younger kids with their reading? And Sarah, maybe you could help with math homework." Tommy felt a mix of sadness and pride. He would miss their regular time with Mr. Ali, but he understood what the champion was really saying. It was time for them to become the helpers, the encouragers, the champions for others. "We can do that," Tommy said, speaking for the group. "You taught us how." "Yes, I did," Mr. Ali replied, his voice full of emotion. "And now you're going to teach others. That's how it works, Tommy. Champions create champions." Years later, when Tommy graduated as valedictorian of his high school class, he would credit that moment as the beginning of his understanding of true leadership. In his speech, he would talk about a heavyweight champion who had taught him that the greatest victories happen not in the ring, but in the quiet moments when we choose to lift others up. The Lincoln Elementary after-school program continued to thrive, with former participants returning as volunteers and mentors. Tommy became one of its most dedicated helpers, eventually earning a scholarship to study education in college. His dream was to become a teacher and start similar programs in other communities. And sometimes, on special occasions, a certain former heavyweight champion would still stop by, sitting in the back of the room with a proud smile as he watched the children he had once mentored now mentoring others, the cycle of championship continuing in ways that no boxing title could ever measure. The business card that had once represented Tommy's family's salvation now sat framed on his desk, a reminder that sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is reach out for help, and that true champions are made not by what they achieve for themselves, but by what they make possible for others. What started as one man's secret mission to help children had grown into a movement of young people who understood that their greatest strength lay not in what they could accomplish alone, but in what they could build together. And in that small neighborhood in Chicago, the legacy of a champion lived on in every child who learned to see themselves not as victims of circumstance, but as champions in training. If Tommy's story of courage and community resonates with you, I'd love to hear about a time when asking for help changed your life, or when you witnessed the power of people coming together to support one another. Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss stories that celebrate the everyday heroes in our communities. Your engagement helps us reach more people who need to hear these messages of hope and resilience, so please give this video a thumbs up and help us spread the word that we're all stronger when we support each other.